And then there's just me scrambling with my little notebook, trying to write down. A lot of my notes are like, what? Question mark, question mark.
Seasons, greetings and salutations, and welcome to Hacker Slash. If you're joining us again, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Are you ready to start the show? If this is your first time listening, welcome to the party. We are a horror movie review podcast dedicated to telling you whether a movie is a hack,
a total joke, a waste of time,
or a slash.
Totally killer, pun intended.
We believe horror is for everyone, and as such, we're rating these movies with a perspective we've gained from our varying walks of life and the flavors of fear we fancy most. My name is Chris. I'm your friendly neighborhood slasher enthusiast. This week I'm joined by the Superfly Space Guy, Mac.
I have to go pull the heads off some very bad people.
And the paranormal Paramore, Binks.
Just as I thought. Nothing in there.
This week we're back in theaters to see the highly anticipated sequel of a horror video game adaptation.
And if you're a patron, you'll also get to hear our B-side at the end of this episode where we revisit Chuck E. Cheese conspiracies.
Before we get down to business, though, we have some follow-up.
Let's follow up on the Slasher's Choice Awards. So Slasher's Choice season is almost here. And this year's awards are shaping up to be a wild one. You know, every December, we turn the spotlight over to you to decide which films stood out, which ones failed spectacularly, and which moments deserve to be immortalized in our year-end episode. Voting opens soon, so keep an eye on our socials, upcoming episodes, and Patreon so you don't miss the chance to cast your ballots for the 2025 Slasher's Choice Awards.
And remember, folks, this year you get to vote for the worst nookie sacrifice because, yes, so many things happen in horror movies because one dude's just trying to get laid.
I'm not surprised.
And that's our follow-up.
Well, in October 2023, we witnessed the feature film adaptation of a video game franchise, but this franchise had been amassing a passionate cult fan base since 2014. While the film dominated domestic box offices with an $80 million debut, the question at hand is whether its successor can find the same success in 2025. This film picks up 1 year after the events of its predecessor, and while Mike has attempted to hide the truth about Abby's animatronic friends, she sets herself on a path of inevitable discovery, and is about to learn just how dark Freddy's origins really are. This week, we're talking about Five Nights at Freddy's 2. What were you both expecting going into this?
So I was definitely expecting a lot of jump scares, a lot of cheesiness, and a ton of Easter eggs and nods to the general franchise that I would just not understand. And I was okay with that. But I really was unprepared for how terribly lost I would feel. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think I didn't think about this movie too much. Maybe it's because of preparing for the holidays and how busy the world has been. But I really just was expecting more possessed animatronics. I was expecting kind of more of the same, but a continuation. And I did not know that I was expecting, I don't know, I should have expected, honestly, the 12 people in the audience dressed like FNAF characters, ready to go, hooting and hollering the whole time. I had no idea that that's what I was up against.
Okay, so this is actually very fun. I was thinking back to the last time we did this franchise, which, I mean, it's one other movie. It was in 2023. The original came out on both streaming and in theaters, and we had the wild and fun idea to just watch it streaming in a watch party in our Discord with our whole community and then roll right into a live recording, which was such a blast. But going into this one and knowing that I enjoyed the first one for what it was, I had this hunch that the only thing I was going to like about this was seeing the joy on my niece and nephew's faces, because they're all massive FNAF fans. And I took them to the theaters to see this movie. And Mac, like you mentioned, there were so many people dressed up. Actually, my niece and nephews also dressed up, and to some extent. It was more casual, like definitely wearing jeans, a hoodie, etc., but very themed. My nephew Chris actually painted his face to look like the puppet. It was a whole situation, very cute. But guys, we fucking walked into the theater and there was definitely a furry. Like, first thing, we walked in there. My nephew was so like, okay, I hope we're not the only ones dressed up. I hope we're not the only ones like doing something. And he's like, oh, I saw the furry tail in you. We were good.
That's wild. That's really wild. But I mean, I guess not entirely surprising. Let me tell you, the fan base goes hard. They go hard for FNAF.
They really do go hard. And you know what? Like, good for them, because I was thinking about this and I remembered the times of the Star Wars prequel trilogy coming out and everybody with their lightsabers at the theater. This was probably the most enthusiastic I've seen an opening night, especially with like the fanfare of dressing up. So it was really cool to be in a room of people who love this shit. And I was just sitting back as kind of a passenger. I felt like the whole theater experience was actually relatively quiet, except for a couple of key moments. But I looked around and I saw my niece and nephews just like looking at each other and like making comments to each other. And I saw down in the row in front of us a woman who's probably about my age who's just like, like shocked and like pointing at the screen, like that Leonardo DiCaprio gif. It was a lot of that energy. But when I tell you that I expected to not be super jazzed about this, I found myself very underwhelmed the entire time. There's a couple moments that I laughed, and the rest of it I was like, all right, this really is not for me. So I gotta find some respect for it.
Though, let's be honest, I felt like I was a new kid in class, okay? A complete outsider in that theater. The best way that I could describe it is, imagine you're a new kid in class, everyone is just making jokes, you know, everyone's in on the joke, and you're trying really hard to laugh along because everyone else seems to laugh, but you just don't quite know if the joke was funny because you don't get the context, you don't understand. The whole theater was erupting in laughter or gasping, cheering. The whole entire theater. I felt like the one person in a theater of maybe 100 seats that didn't understand a single thing. I was silent, looking left to right like, oh, nice. I felt stupid. Truthfully, I felt silly. But something you said earlier, it's like, I still felt glad that everyone was having a good time. So to be clear, it was one of those moments that I felt like I'm okay that maybe I'm not having the best time with this movie, because what's giving me joy is that everyone else is having a blast. And I've been able to have plenty of films and TV shows where I am them, right? And maybe this just isn't for me. Maybe I'm just not the particular audience that this movie is for. And that's totally, totally okay.
You know, I was even thinking about that, Binks, because when I picked up my nephew from school earlier, we're having a whole conversation about Stranger Things. And I'm like, damn, kid, you were so young. I didn't say this, but I was thinking about this. You were so young when Stranger Things first came out. And so now you have a whole reaction to the last episode that we got of the first set of episodes for season 5. And I realized that, man, my Stranger Things is his FNAF. Like, this is just a whole thing. Like, when I'm over here trying to talk about Stranger Things and nobody's fucking getting on the train. And, you know, when I look in that theater, I'm like, wow, I really am the only person here who doesn't fucking like this shit. Okay, all right, that's cool. That's cool.
You're absolutely right. I mean, God, everyone knows that I'm a Stranger Things like fanatic. Obviously, what you don't see, folks, if you're listening, is my room is filled with Stranger Things stuff left and right. So absolutely. And that's why I'm like, it's okay that maybe I'm just not vibing with a lot of what's going on here. Personally, it felt like, outside of that context of knowing, okay, this is a game franchise, whatever, if I remove all that, what the movie felt like to me, and just my experience watching it, was like if it was a filler episode of a TV show. There's some fun moments here and there, but I'm really just wondering what's getting resolved. Like, what's the actual situation at hand, and is it enough to really get me through it? Thank God this movie's pretty short too, so there's not much complaints in that department, but it just felt like a filler.
I think I can understand where you're coming from there. I mean, there's, for me, an age issue, very kid friendly when you're watching this. And the whole escalation of everything is very slow as well. So you got the slow build, pretty much kid friendly, not much shown on screen. You feel, I think, out of place while watching this film if you're around our age, right? And so I think it's still fun, though. I don't think it was not fun to like experience. It's very obvious there's nods to things from the games that I don't understand, but I can tell in those moments, oh, everyone's clapping or cheering. Something cool is happening, and they're enjoying the way it's showing up on screen. I wish that happened in video game movies of my generation, which I hear maybe that'll start to get better soon. So I'm happy for everyone else who had like an absolute blast. For me, it was just kind of a fun thing to watch.
It was actually surprising to me because, again, I had my niece and nephew in the car with me, and we had a 30 to 45-minute drive, and they just lore dumped on me. And I asked for it. I said, I need to know what's going on. What should I be expecting? What I really needed was a refresher on the first movie and the lore, because I had been hearing and learning so much about FNAF since then that I'm like, okay, the lines are a little bit blurred because the movie does do things differently. Our house at Halloween Horror Nights did some things differently. And so I needed to go straight to the FNAF biblical source and just understand what the hell I was walking into. But I was surprised that I could not only A, remember some of what they shared, but also B, that I could actually point out these moments where I'm like, oh, the lore is kind of starting to make a little bit of sense. But also, I don't want to hear anybody talk shit about the Halloween timeline. I don't want to hear anybody talk shit about the Mortal Kombat timeline or the Friday the 13th timeline if you're all around over here simping for Five Nights at Freddy's, because the game, the lore, it's convoluted.
There are a lot of things that are very apparent to me just from these two movies alone that make it clear that we really have to suspend disbelief, right? Or suspend belief. I think that it's very clear to me that we're just here for a silly good time. And that's okay. I can do that to an extent. My surprise was that there were a lot of people involved in this movie, characters specifically, that we were led to believe were like really prominent to the story, or potentially just like, to me, it seemed even from like the trailer and just a little bit of the interview and the press that's been going on about the movie, right? Led me to believe that they were going to be someone prominent, maybe take part in the plot, maybe drive it in a particular direction, etc. And that was just not the case. There were some choices here that were very, very different. So I was surprised, but that was also my disappointment, because at the same time, I felt like these characters could have really been compelling and made the story richer if they had stuck around to an extent. And it feels like it was just random. Like, what were they really there for?
100%. A lot of people in this movie were just accessories, and that was weird. But the other thing that surprised me, because I don't know if I told you this, but I have been on a kick of Hunger Games again. I'm back on my bullshit. I rewatched the first movie, then I watched for the first time The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and then I watched Catching Fire, then both Mockingjays, and then I rewatched them all again the next day. I don't know why I all of a sudden have been on this kick, and I found myself appreciating PETA so much more. And I watched this movie and I'm thinking, man, fuck you almost. I was so disappointed that I could not get behind his character or just about any fucking decision he made. We'll go into more detail in the spoiler zone, but that was a big one for me. That was like, ah.
Oh, listen, we will unpack that in the spoiler zone indeed. Everyone knows how I feel, both about Hunger Games and Josh Hutcherson in particular. I talked about it a lot in the Five Nights at Freddy's episode that we did for the first film. So yeah, I think that at least tempering the expectations now, right, with some of these characters is important. For those that don't have a lot of like passion for this franchise, they're just going for a good time, maybe taking their kids or their friends that played this game when they're younger. Like, you're probably going for particular actors, obviously, or just curiosity, etc. And so I felt like, man, I was really surprised by the bait and switch we got there.
It also seems perhaps like it's a setup for more. Maybe they're trying to say we're committed. That's what it seemed like to me. It was like, hey, next time on Dragon Ball Z, you got to come back. You got to watch the next episode. That's a bit what it felt like.
No, this movie is trying to fucking U-Haul. No. We don't need a commitment to more. We don't even know what this is. We're still exploring. You know what I mean? This is somebody who tries to lock you in and propose on maybe the second date. No, thank you.
Listen, and I don't know much about U-hauling, but I know that that's got to be at least a red flag at the very least. I'm not going to get scammed on this. This sounds like those Netflix documentaries when you hear about these poor women that have been manipulated into giving a rich guy from who knows where their credit card information because they've fallen in love. I don't need all that. I don't need to be like scammed, FNAF. I'm already bought my ticket. I'm on my way. You don't have to trick me.
I can't tell if it was an editing choice, if this was a story thing, if this was a stay tuned for more kind of thing. It seems deliberate in how we don't take advantage of all the great acting, ability that we have on screen here, but maybe we'll get more. To me, though, this felt like part 2 of the first movie. It didn't feel like the second movie. Maybe that's a good thing to have that kind of continuation. And I'll talk about in the spoiler zone where that falls apart. But for the most part, it kind of felt like, oh, I missed the second half of the movie and now we're getting to rewatch it. And it was kind of a disappointment, but also kind of a surprise for it to feel at least that it's continuing.
Yeah, I think the other part of that, Mac, is it feels like the post-credit scene to the first movie. And the way I felt walking out of this at the ending of this movie, I had the same feeling I had when watching Hell House LLC Lineage in theaters earlier this year. Because that movie ends on a what the fuck? And it's not even that this movie is as bad as that. I want to be very clear. Like, FNAF 2 does not deserve that. But it was the same sentiment of closing the door, but also sequel baiting and just demanding more. And it's like, no. I want you to call me in 6 months and then see if I'm still interested. I don't want you to tell me right now that we're going on a second, third, fourth date and then a honeymoon. No fucking way. No, thank you. The other thing that frustrates me about this movie, and I was actually thinking about this in the car, my nephew Chris, the other Chris Rojas, he's 17 now, or he's about to be 17. He was a small kid when this movie came out. So he is getting to the point, after being a child who is obsessed with FNAF, he is now at the point where he could probably go see an NC-17 movie alone. So just put that into context of how long this has been around. A lot of the people in that theater were my age, or if not a little bit older. My point is, FNAF grew this cult following with children or young adults or teens 10 years ago, and yet we're still putting out PG-13 shit. And what I'm saying is, sure, have your PG-13 moment, but just like there have been some theatrical releases that have different cuts or different endings, give me a choose your own adventure FNAF where you can either go see the PG-13 family friendly one or the rated R cut for the fans who have been down for this franchise since the very beginning, who made it what it is and want to see a little bit more fear, a little bit more gore, a little bit more brutality.
Well, because I think what I find so curious about all of this is that I'm in my 30s going to see this movie. And let's say I'm a fan of this game, I've played it when I was younger. It's a horror game. I've played it because it was creepy and scary, at least it seems, because obviously the film's a horror, right? So it's got that thrill. So then why is the movie not matching that energy? A lot of the scares here feel very forced, repetitive, cookie cutter. So that is one thing. The other is animatronics is an actual phobia that exists, right? So we already have that to play off of. And I think that it could really get dialed the fuck up if it was a real horror film that like wasn't afraid to get a little bloody. And I really liked some of the kills. There weren't even many because it is PG-13, but one of the kills in particular of the first one was like really shocking, but it lacked the blood and just the step forward to really take it there. And I find it curious, but I do get that if your audience is going to be a younger demographic, then you need to dial that back. But then you need to kind of ramp up something else. And that has to be the plot. That has to be the dialogue. That has to be something else, dude. Because if not, I feel like I'm like a parent that has to watch the same episode of Bluey on repeat 20,000 times with their child. And I mean, Godspeed to a lot of you parents out there that have to power through that. I'm not there yet, but that's kind of what it could feel like if you're watching this and I'm like, well, I want at least something. Give me something that can feed my spirit.
Yeah, you do feel every bit of the P and every bit of the G when it comes to this rating. The 13, not even that. I just think back to like when we were teenagers, typically we wanted to watch rated R movies. and the people who were preteens were watching the, PG-13. So is the audience for this similar? Is this actually made for preteens and not really for teens? Are those preteens that familiar with the games? Maybe they are. Maybe this is who they're aiming for, but it doesn't seem like a teen movie, even though it's classified as one. Technically, it's a bit weak in the scare department. The gore, I don't really care, but when it comes to fear, we're getting kind of canned jump scares constantly.
And that is what's frustrating, because I had the same feeling walking through the Five Nights at Freddy's house in Halloween Horror Nights. Because it's just, you're immersed in this environment that looks really cool. And I love how screen accurate it is. And I love all the merch. It's great. I want to love this property. But I feel nothing. I feel nothing. You just have a bunch of animatronics around and it's like, oh, okay. Half of these animatronics don't feel threatening. Half of them feel like you just want to cuddle with them. Now, things take a turn in this movie. What I can respect is that it actually takes a turn in a way that sets itself apart from its source material, but I just wish it had dialed up more with its intensity, with its ability to make me feel something as a bystander. If you are a parent who has to take your kids to watch this movie, I want you to be able to get something out of this too, and I just don't feel like you do.
And just to put it into perspective here, I'm going to name a few movies that are from like the early 2000s that were PG-13, okay? 13 Ghosts, funny enough, with Matthew Lillard. Exorcism of Emily Rose, we just reviewed that one. Signs. Cloverfield, another one that we just spoke about. Drag Me to Hell. I'm naming these movies because I feel like a lot of these maybe aren't the most terrifying, but they definitely give more of a fright than this. And I feel like the excuse of this being animatronics is not good enough. I think we really could have gone somewhere here. So when it comes to my perspective on like originality, right, I think that it's hard for me to speak on it because I'm not familiar with the franchise. From my experience watching it with a theater full of mega fans, it sounds like they did a great job in tying it in, fan service, etc. So I love that for all of you. But if I want to look at it from a perspective of just a regular sequel, it seems like, okay, we're moving a little bit forward, but as you're moving forward, you just kind of are making things up as you go. Some things just don't add up with this story, and it ends kind of abruptly in some places. Some threads are just kind of like left out in the dust. A lot of it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it's not just because I don't know about the game. It's just like technically, like and narratively, these characters and their arcs just don't quite seem normal.
Yeah, there's a lot of mess in here, and there are a lot of things that really ask you to squint your eyes just right and look the other way on some details, because it doesn't feel super cohesive. And what's interesting to me was seeing the reactions of so many people who gasped and were excited and loved seeing specific Easter eggs or tie-ins from the video games, etc. But there are a couple things that felt super different, even from what my niece and nephews were sharing with me before the movie. Like, characters specifically in the way that they are very different from the game. And so that's why it was interesting to me that I didn't see a lot of distaste for that. Now, granted, I haven't looked up anything about this movie's reception online. I imagine maybe it's not great, but who's to say? Can't wait to get into the spoiler zone, and I have a little curated list of things that my niece and nephews caught.
I think a similar movie to me, though, is, something where you build with blocks and there's a chicken and goodness, it's Minecraft. But the reception to that, people were like, this is the worst thing ever. It's not even Minecraft. It's nothing like the game, except you had a bunch of people out there yelling chicken jockey and bringing their families to go watch it. I've never played the game, never watched the movie, but it seems similar in that it doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to entertain, and it has to do fan service, and people will still love it. And I don't know how this compares to the game. I've never played the games, but there were those moments where people were cheering, they were clapping, they were, again, hooting and hollering all throughout the film, agreeing with what's going on when they would see a character show up or something happen to a character, and they were so excited to see that on screen. That, to me, I'm just curious, was the whole thing like that? Was it just moments of fan service? How does it really compare? And did it make you all happy? and how it showed up, because it sure seemed like it while we were watching it. I know nothing of the games. If this is close, more power to them.
It's really funny. I know I've mentioned some of the reactions that I saw in the theater. A lot of them were on the quieter side. And I'm actually just thinking back. There was 1 to 2 unanimous moments where people in my audience made a loud enough sound where you knew we were all on the same page. And they both surrounded Mike's character. Again, can't wait to get into that, but I can assure you that one of them was the ending of this movie, because what the actual fuck. Again, I mentioned it earlier. This left me with the same feeling I had when watching Hell House LLC Lineage. 2 different leagues of movie, and this one certainly is technically better in just about every way. But the ending for me felt super underwhelming, super disappointing, even though an aspect of the climax I felt was probably the highest point in the whole movie.
That's interesting. I think that for me, I kind of just surrendered by the time that the ending came around, to the point where I just accepted that I don't understand how we got here, and I'm really struggling to catch up with everybody else. But I suppose if I reflected a little bit more in the moment, it's pretty predictable, I guess. Like I suppose that I can see the trajectory of where this movie was going to go in hindsight. So I'm not entirely mad at it, but it is mostly in part due to a particular character that I am a huge fan of. And I think that if there's going to be something that will get me into FNAF, it's going to be this one character. I have to admit.
It's such a weird ending, though. And, as somebody who maybe grew up watching like 80s and 90s movies exclusively, because that's when I was alive, but perhaps it was the cocaine, would just feel good about having an ending be an ending, and then 2 characters given a high five, and then credits roll, and we're done. And we don't get that here. We get this like meandering, and then we get post-credit scenes. You're not Marvel. We don't need post-credit scenes. Just give me the end of 2 of them, right? So just give me the end of the movie. Make it be done. And then if there's more, let me be excited about it, not be like, oh, I have to watch it now because the story's incomplete. There's so many films. It's all about like making money or something. The video games don't work like that. The video games are like, here's your game, here's your story, you made it through, great job. And that's what we want on screen.
I need you to know, I saw the credits roll, and I knew that we were going to have an end credit scene because Binks had given the warning. And I still wasn't that into watching it. Got through it, stood up, and my nephew Gavin's like, hey, I kind of want to watch until like the end. And I'm like, kind of recording. Okay, I get it. I'm going to go use the bathroom. I'll come back for y'all. And sure enough, I come back, and everybody was still in the theater. And there was apparently another end credit scene. And I'm like, what the fuck? Or at least some audio. Mac, I don't know if you stayed for both of them, but I was like, this movie has a lot of nerve, demanding so much time and attention.
But it's funny that we bring up Marvel, because that's kind of how it felt being in that theater. I felt like I was watching Endgame all over again, with everyone screaming and shouting and losing their minds, like a majority of the movie. And then there's just me scrambling with my little notebook, trying to write down. A lot of my notes are like, what? Question mark, question mark. I just don't understand what's happening. So definitely funny that we're bringing up Marvel, because I absolutely expect that there are going to be end credit scenes for something like this. After watching the reaction that I just got, I wouldn't even be shocked if we're going to get 4 more movies of this, all with an ending that is just as big of a cliffhanger as this one.
Listen, the only movie I want to see with that kind of reaction is Pooniverse Monsters Assemble. That's the kind of nonsense that I'm here for. But before we start making our way towards our ratings, Mac, how would you rate the gore score?
Look, I would call this a medium low, especially if you're bringing kids to it, which a lot of people are apparently doing. Medium low for them. For us adults, definitely low.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a real generous helping of medium.
Again, it's the P in the PG. Wait, no, it's the G in the PG. Something.
And what about the animal report?
So the animatronics may be animals, but we are safe for this report.
Let's go ahead and get into our ratings. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 from 2025. Was it a hack or a slash? And I'd like to just kick us off here, just to get it out of the way. There is a movie for everyone out there. There's a franchise for everyone out there, a property for everyone out there. And I love that for you. The thing that gave me a lot of joy watching this movie was getting to take my niece and nephews with me, because that was the first time I've just taken them on a little solo excursion to go see a movie. They're teenagers. They eat this up. They love it. And I think about me sitting in theaters for the Blumhouse Halloween trilogy. And I think about how much I loved that and how that was years of my fandom culminated on screen. And so I'm really glad that this movie exists for those who love this property. I'm probably going to go see it again with Ali's son. That's going to be a blast. But the thing for me as an elder millennial, actually not even that much of an elder millennial, I feel like I'm an elder millennial. I feel like I'm probably 2 generations older than I am. But I'm watching this movie in a theater knowing that I prefer slashers. I'm here for Terrifier. I'm here for my bloody gory nonsense. And I'm not really here for Five Nights at Freddy's. I can respect what the first movie did, and I slashed that one. I enjoyed it for what it was. But for me, there's too many things in this movie that just don't add up. You have aspects of the plot that just do not gel together well. It's not cohesive. I leave with more questions than answers, but not the types of questions that leave me wondering what's going to happen next. It's not that kind of question. It's not intrigue. It's, okay, well, what was that? And as I reflect on this movie, I think about Chica in so many scenes saying that she wants to know what's going on inside someone's head. And then there's a moment where she says, just as I thought, nothing at all. And that's what this movie feels like. This movie feels like nothing at all. That means it's unfortunately a hack.
I see where you're coming from, for sure. I think if you loved this movie, you know what 6'7" means. You call people like us people born in the 1900s, and you feel okay with that. But I think for me, it was okay, right? As now the elders would say, it was mid. And I think that's all right. It was still fun. I'm more intrigued by the lore of it all, especially if the games go way deeper than this. That's more interesting. I mean, I've found myself with different properties over the years just pulling up a wiki and reading deep into stuff about characters I'll never see on screen. Star Wars is a great example of that, where there's 10,000 characters you can dive into and stories and things that happen, and you can never even watch it, never read a book, and you can still get like the goosebumps from how cool it was that somebody put that work into it. I love that kind of stuff. And I'm sure that this exists for Five Nights at Freddy's. Those moments felt more interesting than the rest of the film. It's kind of boring. It's kind of slow. There's not a lot of kills, not at all. And so there's not a lot to go off here. But I think as a thriller for kids, it was fun. It wasn't a bad movie. It wasn't, for me, a joke or a waste of time. So I'm going to give it a slash.
It's very nice of you. It really is. I deeply respect this franchise and its fan base, okay? I want that to be clear. It's one that I wish I got into, because what no one could ever take away from FNAF is that its fans go hard, and the filmmakers really are feeding their fans well. They fully committed to not wanting to make sense for a general audience, and I can respect that brave choice, okay? As for the rest of us, well, I just feel like at this point we have to accept this movie for being a generic PG-13 quick watch. There were certainly a lot of moments that felt silly and illogical. Others that felt like a Disney Channel original movie film. So like, we're talking a little bit cozy at times, entails some bad acting for sure, a forced romantic subplot, and at the very least, a semi-decent mystery narrative. But overall, I will say on the pro side, it's a step up from the previous one. I think that there were moments that were a touch cooler kills here and there, certainly more fan service, which as a theater experience, I think was kind of fun, even though I felt, a little uncomfortable not getting in on the joke. I was happy that everyone else was having a good time. If you're that kind of person, I suppose, an empath. But lastly, I think what really does it for me was an introduction of a particular character who I found very compelling and creepy that I wish existed outside of the context of FNAF. But all those great things aside, on the other hand, these improvements that I just mentioned don't quite merit a full 180 opinion change from me. I think that ultimately, if you are a longtime fan of the franchise, I would strongly recommend that you check this movie out. You're going to have a great time because it is made specifically for you. And that's great. But if you're like me and you don't know a thing about a thing, I would definitely say this is going to be a hack for sure.
Well, with that, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 from 2025 has earned 2 hacks and 1 slash. And we'll see just how generous that slash was when we get into our spoiler zone. Now, we have a lot to unpack here, including some of the things that either remain the same or different from the video game property. But for now, go check it out in theaters and then join us in the second half so we can break down all these spoilers together. We'll see you in a bit.
You're invited to the only event bold enough to combine largest pizza ever recorded with open invitation to a building that definitely doesn't pass a safety inspection. Faz Fest Pizza Party. This year marks the first annual Faz Fest, a celebration of pizza, questionable robotics, and the kind of nostalgia you remember fondly until you wake up at 3 a.m. wondering why the animatronics had teeth that sharp. At Faz Fest Pizza Party, you'll enjoy unlimited slices because the kitchen made way too much. And all you can handle character interactions, including at least one bear who makes you question your life choices. Bring the whole family. Kids get in free, adults get in cheap, and liability waivers are signed at the door. Partly for safety, but mostly because someone finally read the fine print of what happens after closing time. This year's attractions include the world's largest pizza, measuring roughly the size of a moderately sized studio apartment. A cheese-to-crust ratio mathematicians have already declared irresponsible. A guided tour of the back room, where you'll learn fun facts like we don't go in there anymore. So grab a slice, grab a friend, and absolutely do not wander off alone. Faz Fest Pizza Party, because nothing brings people together like pizza, community, and a gentle sense of foreboding.
Welcome back, folks. You're now entering the spoiler zone for Five Nights at Freddy's 2 from 2025, which has earned 2 hacks and 1 slash. Now, we have so much to get into, but before we actually break down our ratings, let's go through those kills.
Let's look at all of them, all 5 of them here that I counted at least. I was hoping I was going to get on here and you guys were going to tell me you forgot 4 of them or something, but to the best of my ability, these are the 5 I can remember. These are the 5 I recorded. There was one that I thought was a kill. That wasn't a kill. It was a fake out. So that didn't count. So that took us down. But of those 5, which ones did you enjoy?
Well, the very clear answer, I would hope and pray, is Newman from Seinfeld. Just kidding. In this movie, it's Mr. Berg. And I have to say that right there was the filmmakers, like the director, the writer, whomever was in charge. That was their nod to our generation, was having Newman in this movie. Because when I saw him there, I was like, oh, someone I like understand, aside from obviously the love of my life, Josh Hutcherson and Matthew Lillard's Skeet Ulrich. But to have a deep cut like that was impressive. What was even more impressive was having him be such a pain in the ass as much as he was in Seinfeld, except worse, because Mr. Berg had me fired the fuck up. That misogynistic piece of garbage. Listen, if this had been an R-rated film, I would have really wanted to see that kill in full-fledged madness. But we'll take what we can get.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the 2018 Halloween when we have Michael Myers stomping Dr. Sartain. That's the kind of gooey mess I wanted to see come out of Chica's hands.
I'm kind of glad we didn't get too much, but we definitely didn't get enough. This was the prime example of like every kill where they did it all off screen. They went a little bit further. At least they kept his head on screen longer and showed that the fingers were getting closer together to, hey, I'm telling you, his head is getting squished, because that's about as strong as that effect was. But you're right in that he was a jerk. I kind of loved it. I think this is an okay nod to perhaps an older generation because we're spoiled with Stranger Things, of course, to mention it once more as having every nod to people that we loved to watch on screen. But this was interesting because he's so different from watching him in Seinfeld, and the jerkiness that you get here is like, why? Like, why be that much of a douche? And then when he gets got, it was okay. I think it was an acceptable way to take him out.
It felt like it was so forced in a sense because it really was out of left field. Why are you such a dick? Like, to this one girl, do you really think that this girl can't be a woman in STEM that badly? Of all fucking people in this classroom? It was a little odd. But, I mean, whatever. I guess it worked on me because I was fired up when he ended up dying.
Yeah, he had my favorite death, undoubtedly. But I do want to point out a couple others. One, Lisa. Bless you, Lisa. I really wished you had stayed in the movie longer. I thought that she was going to deliver something else. I thought the entire angle of this group had so much more to give. But also, and this is one of my many disappointments in this movie, not the worst part of the movie, I really disliked the way the puppet's face looked on other people, starting with Lisa. I thought it looked freaking terrible.
Fair. That's fair. Now, I mentioned earlier my disappointment being characters, lack of potential. Obviously, McKenna Grace playing Lisa. How are you going to go around and throw that woman who has been in, I don't even know at this point, I think it's like over 40 films. This year alone, she's been in like 5, it feels like. I mean, I love this actress. She's great. I think that she's going to be incredible, you know, in terms of her career moving forward. But they knew what they were doing because they put that girl in all of the press, made it seem like she was going to be in the movie. Funny that you brought up Hunger Games because she's going to be in the new one. And I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. Her and Josh Hutcherson together, the Hunger Games and FNAF. That's so cute.
Okay.
She's in the movie for like 5 minutes.
Yes, but can I tell you something that's even funnier that my nephew schooled me on? And wow, I need to hang out with kids more often because I feel so much more in touch with the world now. Apparently, when she was younger, she did PETA Malark fan edits. And she admitted this to a reporter, and the reporter broke it to Josh. And Josh learned about this live in an interview, and she was absolutely mortified. She's like, if I had known I would end up working with him one day, I never would have admitted to this. Hilarious.
Can I give you one better, actually? Because she got a second time. So there was an interview with the entire cast, including Matthew Lillard, and she made a fan edit of Matthew Lillard on a secret fan account that she has, a TikTok specifically. A secret TikTok. She did a fan edit of Matthew Lillard like earlier this year. And that she admitted herself.
Okay, you know what? The only way this could have been better is if the fan edit was of Billy and Stu being gay for each other.
Which is what we all need. Let's be very clear. I love McKenna Grace. I think she's so sweet, so cute. I mean, it's a little bit of bias because she plays my favorite character from Haunting of Hill House. But aside from that, I think she's just like in every movie, some way, somehow, that you've probably ever seen in your life. So I felt like when she got, I was so thrown off because, take the actress aside, the whole idea of having this paranormal, like, young group going in, I thought that was pretty compelling and interesting to kind of like, what does this look like from the outside perspective? Some random strangers that aren't even probably from this area, more or less, right? They are just here for the paranormal shit and they know what they know. Going in, and how would they address the situation versus a regular guy and his sister, you know?
100%. I think the other part of this that really stands out for me is the death we get in the river. Because, okay, it's actually, I'm going to admit this as well, it's actually my favorite scene in the whole movie. And it's also because of the production design in this movie. But this one in particular felt like a little nod to the bullshit I love, because we have all the tiny little puppets, all the tiny little versions of the marionette, and we have them in the water, and it felt like a rip off of Piranha. And to finally have them all gathered together And then the way that he falls into the water and then gets got, and then we see the flashlight in the water, we see the blood everywhere. It was just honestly, for me, a moment that felt like sheer camp. And I wanted more of that energy.
Yeah. I can see how at the very least, if you're going to do this, make it camp and make it good.
Absolutely. But I think that's also just such, again, a testament to how incredible the production is overall. The set design is immaculate. The animatronics are immaculate. When you have the legendary work of Jim Henson's legacy just working through this movie, you're not going to get anything less than a stellar aesthetic. But for me, it was just the way this entire set came together. We obviously had the first location in the first movie, but to know that there's this little slice of history that is off the beaten path for our main characters in the original film, but this is where it actually started. I absolutely loved that approach, taking that in from the games. But for me, this place looked like a vibe. I would want to spend my birthday here.
Bear, and I miss those days.
You know, that makes me think we just need to do Willy's Wonderland in January.
Oh my, Willy's Wonderland. That sounds like a thing. I want to go back to this whole setup with this crew that you've mentioned, because that's 3 of our 5 kills. And that's kind of crazy that this blip in the movie has 60% of the kills of the movie. And it doesn't feel like earned. It also doesn't feel like correct. I think this scene should have felt more like the Red Wedding from Game of Thrones. It should have been so shocking. So Lisa should have been like drummed up a little bit more, you know, make her more important, make her more likable, make us think even more that she's going to stick around. There was like a little bit of it where it's like, okay, she's obviously going to be the survivor. These other the other guys are getting taken out. No, they're all gone. So like really, you know, amp it up a little bit, make us love this character, and then shock us if you're going to get rid of all 3 and do it simultaneously.
Yeah, I think my other problem with this is they're cowards. They should have committed. Either give us back Lisa, because apparently this music can shut off and maybe she wasn't dead all along, maybe she's just unconscious, or commit to killing Abby. I know, controversial, but also she got. Let her get got.
That is true. Make it so that nobody's safe. That could be a thing that you do, especially as you're making more of these movies. You're going to have to like let people move on with their lives at a certain point and get other gigs. So why not just take them out with a boldness?
Listen, and I promise this actually will be the last time that we bring up Stranger Things, but much like Stranger Things, it seems like at times we're a little bit afraid of doing the hard thing, right? We're afraid of sticking to the consequences of our actions. And I feel like there would have been an opportunity to really surprise the audience to some capacity. And it's also just the potential of other kills that were on the table that would have been warranted. Those parents fucking suck. Sorry, but factual. And at least one of them should have gotten got, but they didn't. And that seems a little bit cheap. But that said, because now that I brought it up, and we were talking about also just the look of Freddy's, right? I want to talk a little bit about Charlotte / Marionette. Because if I had to pick, I've got a few that are of production things that I really enjoyed. Location, set design, incredible. Newton Brothers doing the score again. They're a Mike Flanagan frequent collaborator. Of course, I'm going to love the score. And I still, to this day, as much as I didn't like the first movie, I still play that end credit song on full 10, okay? That song fucking slaps. I mean, it's fantastic. Chica, she got a snatched waist, so much so that Megan Fox is now voicing her, all right? I'm here for all of it. But what we need to talk about, and I'm so curious about your thoughts on, is Marionette. That villain right there, that character right there, I need Marionette in so many other ways outside of this franchise. I want a spinoff. I want... This is a character that will, if I really was into FNAF, would unlock my crazy obsession. This whole room would be Marionette. It's so sick. It's disgusting. I love the way that she looks. I think she's so cool. I will agree that the look of Marionette maybe on the people was a little bit silly, for sure. But who is this Marionette, and how do I get more of her? I need to immediately.
Okay. So we'll go into a few things later offline, for the sake of not spoiling things. But we have Charlotte as a character. She is the daughter of someone significant. And in the original games, she is inadvertently killed, but she's more of like a protector. This is to my understanding. She is a protector of the spirits of the children who are put into the suits. It was interesting that they made her more of a villain because she was, again, trapped in this last moment of rage because she's not a malevolent spirit in the game. At least that's again, my understanding. I could be missing the nuance of this, but that seemed like a very significant shift.
Oh, that's pretty big. And I have to say, that's so interesting because I guess visually you look at Marionette and I mean, she is scary. If that was creeping around the corner right behind me, I would be freaking out. At least me personally.
It's weird though, because she just doesn't fit in. And I don't know how you guys feel about the look of the animatronics here. I kind of love that we got two different styles pitted against each other. And it's my understanding that this goes even further when it comes to the actual games where there's all sorts of different versions of all of these characters. And that's fun. Plastic or metal or whatever they're made of, or the fuzzy ones, I think both looked great. And I don't know if it was practical, if it was CGI, whatever it was. I kind of love the look of them, except for Marionette. Did not enjoy the look of that character one bit. I wanted it to look more grounded, to look more like an animatronic. Instead, it just looked like a floating ghost to me. And that was like meh. The look of the people's faces, like Chris mentioned earlier, also meh. But the other stuff, you know, all the bears and the foxes and all that looked awesome, whether it was shiny or fuzzy.
Well, it's interesting. And I think maybe I'm so enamored. It feels like I'm so obsessed with Marionette now because when I commit to looking at this movie as if it was my teenage or like my, younger self watching it, right? Throwing on a Disney Channel movie, like Don't Look Under the Bed, like that Marionette specifically, like that would scare me deeply. It would freak me the fuck out. And now as a little bit of an adult reflecting on like, man, if I was younger, I would be really creeped out by this. I think that that's also why I found her introduction to be my favorite scene because it almost felt out of place. But the one thing that was out of place that impressed me because it was actually creepy, she felt like a snake almost. It reminded me a little bit of like No Face from Spirited Away, but in a very sinister way. Very curious, very like potentially fucked up, like what the actions that character could potentially take. And then I, unfortunately remembered, oh, that's right, this is a damn PG-13 movie. But I don't know, the look really just was intriguing for me. And I think that her introduction, the way that she slides out of that box was, off-putting but fun and something that made me want to, if anything, watch the next movie just to see what more could come from that character. But that's really the extent of it.
Okay, I'm glad we're talking about her because I have two qualms with not just her specifically, but rather two areas where I was like, this demands an answer to these questions. So I know that we are expected to believe that there's just this amazing wireless signal that works in the 80s. I know. Let's suspend the disbelief. However, my true issue comes with you not only expecting me to buy that and to believe that, but for it to also be so low tech that it's just a little blipping red dot on a screen from the early 2000s that obviously was around since the 80s. And that also Mike can't seem to navigate a menu system quickly. What the hell was that? This whole scene where he's trying to disable the signal and the trackers and like shut everything down, and he's going back and forth between having to put on a mask and things coming around. It felt like we're just being baited to have a callback to the game, but there's no way that the action that he needed to take should have taken that long. And so it felt very disconnected.
I know that it did, but it was my favorite scene because it was so silly. I thought it was a moment of humor on purpose. And it was like, it's very obvious. This feels like it's a shot from the game. It feels like, okay, everyone knows this. They had to do it. And you have to like balance going back and forth between clicking on buttons. It's probably not even in the game. Who knows? Somebody please tell us. But it just feels like that. That part was silly. When he has to put the mask on to like stave off the animatronics showing up to kill him, and then they do it a couple of times, that to me was humorous, and that's why I liked it.
Okay, but you know what? It's also the fact that he really told Vanessa, who knew what she was doing, to go out there and go find them, and that he would turn off the signal from here. And he just proceeded to click around a little bit. He actually took what felt like an eternity in like what must have been at least 40 minutes within the movies in real world time to figure out which desktop icon he wanted to fucking click. You know what I mean? It was just such an oddly paced moment. And sir, you could have resolved this had you just let Vanessa sit there and do it.
Listen, okay, most definitely. But would Vanessa have actually done it, considering she's a little, just stubborn and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? I've got my qualms. I've got my thoughts and feelings. She's quite a fascinating person. But so is he. He's not safe. No one is in this movie. Let's be very clear. My thing is that also, correct me if I'm wrong, but if this is the 80s and this is Wi-Fi, isn't that like a landline thing? Couldn't someone have just picked up a phone? And then that would have been done for, because I remember that you couldn't be on the phone and Wi-Fi at the same time. Am I an idiot? But that's what I recall from my youth.
But we also didn't have wireless signal in the 80s.
To begin with. Okay, great. But like, even if that was the case, like wireless and then you have landlines, but then you don't have, like, pick and choose the technology stack here, because none of it makes sense. It's very clear that that was a scene that was supposed to emulate game mechanics, because I know that mask thing is from the game. I've at least seen those screenshots and those pictures. I can tell when you're trying to make it seem like there's tension when you're playing a video game, like you said, Mac, where you're like doing something, but then you have to keep looking up to see if someone's coming. He reiterates 5,000 times that there's no door. Okay, buddy, we get it. We know. It's very clear. It was a very like funny and weird scene for sure. I think if you can, again, commit to your perspective of the movie and just accept that it's silly, then you're going to have quite a time with that scene amongst many.
And I feel like I just want to be very specific here. And Mac, I'm sure you can chime in on this. Obviously, this movie does not take place in the 80s apart from the beginning of the movie. But this restaurant, this location, the Marionette, has been shut down since the 80s. The technology for Wi-Fi wasn't approved until the late 90s. So I just want to be super specific. Now, if this movie is trying to imply that in the early 2000s, this tech was retrofitted into the Marionette, but that's also just not the case, because we have Michael Afton, who says, yeah, the tech was really way ahead of its time. Okay. All right. That's it.
All right, buddy.
It really seemed like they didn't know how to write it away, because they're like, well, how are they connecting to anything wirelessly without it just being ghosts? Let's just say they had future tech. It's such a cheap shot. It's like they do that in like spy movies where they're like, everything's going to be realistic except for the technology. And we'll just say it's because they got the best. And that's what it felt like.
At this point, just fucking set the movie in 2025 and pop an air tag in that thing. Good
point. I mean, to set it like 25 years ago is weird for some reason, because like you don't feel it. When you're watching it, it just feels like a grungy town. It doesn't even feel like the year 2000 and whatever this year is, 2001, 2, or 3. It just feels like a grungy town and nobody has cell phones. And then somebody takes out a cell phone and you're like, oh, that's right. This is set in the past. I forgot that.
There was just so much. The time period felt so odd, that's for sure. But one thing that I will say was funny, at the very least, or a scene that in particular that felt really funny and very MCU, if anything, was the battle of franchise locations. Okay, because when the OG animatronics were battling it out with the furrier, fuzzier animatronics from the first film, I thought, this is like when your favorite local Starbucks is having it out with the new revamped Starbucks that's down the street. Okay. Who are you going to go to now? What's it going to be?
Oh, I thought it was more like the Dunder Mifflin Branch Wars.
100% had the same
Oh my
thought.
God. That's incredible. Yes, absolutely. And what's even funnier is like, you can't even let these kids go to rest. We spent a whole movie about them going to heaven or just being at peace. Like, let's resolve this, but let's bring them back just once more to have it out with, this new or OG location with brand spanking new animatronic looks, and then be gone with you again. That fight was also all of like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I did think that their little moment of takedown was the best part of the ending for me. It's actually one of my favorite parts of the movie overall. And now that I've said my favorite part of the movie, I think I will do a worse part later. I can't wait to get into it. But I did mention that there was one other big question that really stood out for this movie for me. And that actually has to do with some of the characters. But why those adults specifically? Because I get the vibe. I get the idea. She is trapped in this moment of rage when she was shut out at the pizzeria, when nobody would listen to her. But the problem for me is that when we look into the future, so much has already happened in this movie that none of these faces look familiar to me. She was very specifically going to some specific adults, but they also didn't look like them. And then we had a younger adult that she was targeting, which feasibly could have been a grown-up kid who was talking shit about her in the pizzeria, but also that identity felt unclear. And I think maybe something that could have sold it for me would be if the adults seemed to recognize the animatronics that were in their homes.
Yeah, that math didn't math, and I don't know if it's that the casting budget just wasn't there for that plot to follow through, but I definitely see what you're pointing out there. That's for sure. I want to talk just very briefly about Vanessa because it seems like maybe I will be on an island on this one. Vanessa's such an interesting character because you're the daughter of a serial killer. Suddenly, out of nowhere, you have a brother. But okay, I guess, because by the look of those eyebrows, buddy, it was very apparent that you were creepy from the start. So I don't know if that was supposed to be some kind of crazy ass reveal, but it wasn't for me. I saw that from a mile away.
So apparently in the game, he is not evil. His whole mission is to undo the evil that his father did.
What? Well, first of all, when he said that his name was Michael, everyone in the theater lost their minds. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, so wait, are there two Michaels in this goddamn movie? That's stupid, personally.
Yeah. And again, this is one of those things where, and listen, if you're listening to this episode and you are a big Five Nights at Freddy's fan, please comment on this episode and give us the lore. You know so much that we can learn from you, but that is my understanding. So maybe it was surprising for them in the theater if he's not supposed to be this evil character.
Then, oh, absolutely. That's exactly what it was, because everyone was losing their minds, and I'm just confused as how there's another Michael. But I couldn't agree more. I'm desperate to understand this franchise. I'm desperate. Absolutely. Because for me, it's like, so Vanessa, is she really in the game for real? And what is her purpose then if she suddenly has a brother? And then the way that she's portrayed in this movie, though, seems like she just cannot be trusted, not at any point in time. And I understand that we're supposed to just empathize with the fact that her dad is a serial killer, seems to have been very manipulative, obviously, extremely abusive to some capacity, obviously. I get that. But to some extent, I need to feel like I can trust you as a viewer. And back to back, in almost the same breath, it was all of a sudden, okay, you have another best friend, or you have a best friend that also died. Didn't want to reveal that. There is an OG location of Freddy's, apparently down the block, close enough for you to bike there, but we didn't know that. Okay. And then you've got a brother who also seems to be a security guard at that location. There's a lot of things that happened all at once that were supposed to be revealed through Vanessa that made her credibility absolute garbage, so that when Mike, part one, by the way, so don't get confused, we've got Josh Hutcherson, when he says, stay away from me, everybody loses their mind in the theater again the second time around, like, oh, like how could he do that to her? And I'm like, well, I mean, she did kind of lie nonstop.
Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on. I feel like you are a victim of the Vanessa propaganda. You have fallen for an agenda. At least.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's what it feels like for me. So let's run this back. Vanessa grew up in a abusive household with her serial killer father. What an insane way to grow up. Clearly, her brother is no better. Clearly, her brother is not well. So understandable that she would distance herself from them within a reason. Also, she met this guy in the last fucking movie. And not only that, she has revealed so much. She has gotten stabbed by her father. She has proven herself that she is to be trusted, that she is a good character, aligned with a bad family 100%. But for me, doesn't seem to be this evil, manipulative person that's following in her father's footsteps. In addition to that, every time she reaches the subject or there's a moment to talk about things, Mike says what? I just want to move forward. I want us to move forward. Oh, just fix your dreams. I'm trying to fix you. Fuck that. She has deeply traumatic shit that she has gone through, that she is healing from. I don't think she owes him anything, because that is also a lot to share when you're processing all this. I don't like this movie. Vanessa is what I liked most about this movie.
Oh gosh, Binks. Both Chris and I, while you were speaking, were reacting just so exaggeratively, because to imagine that she's a liar seems crazy to me. He is the biggest jerk in this movie. He is an unlikable character. He's a big dumb idiot basically the entire movie. He's horribly mean to her the whole time. Even on their date, he's being a jerk to her. And for him to basically go through all of this with her, get through all of this crazy trauma, even in just this film alone, and then to be like, no, I can't trust you. And it's like, what did we just do? I'm pretty sure we just saved the day together. Pretty sure you and I fought against a common cause. And he's like, nah, now get out of my life. Excuse me?
Yeah, she just turned on her fucking brother to also defend them.
But here's my problem. Is that where did this brother even come from? You know what I'm trying to say? So that's it's in the writing, right? I think that if there was a moment to kind of just comprehend, a second to comprehend that she's had to deal, to your point, with both an abusive dad and then hiding the fact that she has a brother with all the while having to deal with the trauma of having lost the best friend, all of these things that she's unpacking throughout the movie versus just the last 20 minutes where all of this is revealed at once. I feel like it was just a lot of exposition for this character in just a quick snap to basically explain why Marinette would even possess her to begin with. Okay. And I felt like that felt very cheap. Now, hold on, because what I want to make very clear is that Mike, part one, okay, Josh Hutcherson, to be clear, also is trash and also is basically another person that's the polar opposite of what they've done to Vanessa. Because I explicitly wrote down, you're telling me that all of the first movie, this guy has all this trauma about having lost his brother, he was kidnapped, never found out what happened to him, all of this guilt, etc. Suddenly, you find out what happened to him, and in a click, trauma be gone. You're completely hunky-dory. Everything is great. You have no problems whatsoever. Let's move on. That sounds very ridiculous. That sounds a little okay, we are now forced as a viewer to move on from what the plot was of the first one in terms of this character. His character arc is done. We're going to reset and make him the foil for Vanessa in terms of what she's going through. And it feels like there is no chemistry between the two of them. This could have been if we're trying to make this like a romance plot, subplot or chemistry between the two of them, it could have been the fact that they both have been through extreme, like fucked up shit together. Her definitely more than him, that's for sure. But they both have this trauma to unpack together. They've both saved the day together. They both care and have to go through all of these things together as a unit. But instead, it's just like, okay, now that we resolved his ghost, we're going to reset him, make him the stereotypical piece of shit guy. And then we're going to basically make her look like she has all of this secretive baggage that she's suddenly revealing because, you know, we just feel like we need to explain a lot of the loopholes that are going on here and a lot of fan service that we need to provide in the last 20 minutes so that we can provide a cliffhanger at the end. And it seems very messy to me.
And that is enough for you to feel like her character can't be trusted because it's clearly poor technical execution. Like, that's my thing, right? Like, this guy not being brought up or mentioned in the entire first movie does not inherently mean that she's not a character to be trusted, because I think the execution and the way this movie comes together is proof enough that it's just sloppy. That's the reality of this movie in particular. And what we see from her is someone who is battling so much internally, but who is still trying to do the right thing to help other people. That's objectively what we see on screen. So for me, it's never a question about where Vanessa's loyalty lies. And honestly, you fucking brought it up, Binks, and it actually just made me even more mad at Mike, because fuck you for having all this bullshit in the first movie and then deciding that because you've moved on, she needs to move on. When, I'm sorry, dude, you didn't get stabbed by your dad. What the hell was that? Man, fuck this guy. He is the worst part of this movie. 100%. Not Josh Hutcherson's acting. You know, our boy Josh, Peter Malark, good for you. Love you, man. Fuck this character specifically. You're trash. I don't like you.
I will agree that not just him, though. I think it's the way the relationships changed between the characters, between the first movie and this movie. He is completely neglectful of his younger sister, by the way. She says she's 11, and he's just like, cool, go do your own thing. I'm going to go on that side of town and do whatever I want to do. So he's treating her like he doesn't care. He treats effectively his could-be girlfriend with such suspicion, where it's like, he's like one of those guys that's like, after 2 dates, you didn't tell me you had an ex-boyfriend. It's like, bro, we don't really know each other. Like, what? That's how he's acting towards her, where it's like they've probably been out like a handful of times. The fact that he probably doesn't even know her middle name. And so for him to be like so reactive about this kind of stuff is ridiculous, but it feels like the writing for this came out of nowhere. The way that they talk to each other is like, who did this?
I 100% can guarantee he does not know the following: her big three, her coffee order, her favorite color, her favorite meal. I guarantee he doesn't know her third grade teacher's name, her mother's maiden name. All he has in common with her is this traumatic experience. And this movie is proof enough that when the credits roll and the sun goes down on some of our favorite will they, won't they relationships in a horror movie, trauma is not enough to build a lifetime of love.
Period. Because what is probably horrendous in terms of the writing for these characters is that if you want me to believe that in this next movie, there is going to be some kind of like, we need to save her because I love her, now you're offending me. Now you think I'm stupid. And listen, I've been through my fair share of traumatic relationships, that's for sure. But the way that he is written, let's be very clear, reminds me a lot of the common man, the common performative man that will do just what he needs to take you out on the date and do what he must. But everything that you just rattled off, Chris, I bet you that I could probably pull the streets, and most guys don't even know that about their like partners currently.
Oh, for sure.
So,
also, I was waiting for him to call her a capital mutt, because he definitely seemed like brainwashed PETA in that fucking moment.
He was giving brainwashed PETA. And you know what? Here's the thing. Speaking of what I consider the best part, although it is Marionette for me in her design. I know maybe I'm just on an island here. That's okay. I think the look of the Marionette, super cool. I'm here for it. Great villain, but I guess not a villain. That's crazy. For me, it's having Josh Hutcherson back in the theater. I said this, I think, for the first movie as well. I love him dearly, and I just really need this resurgence of him back in the game, even if he's playing a horrendous character. But above that, what takes the spot here, most definitely, is Matthew Lillard and Skeet Ulrich back at it again. I despise that we only got them for 0.3 seconds individually, not even together. But at least I'm getting the press junkets. I'm getting them in the red carpet together. I just finished reading a book that goes over like all the behind the scenes things that happened with Scream and the entire franchise, and just hearing them talk about each other and how everything went. Like, I love the two of them. We all do. So if this movie's what brings them together again on this big screen, so be it. But if they don't show up in a scene together in the next one, some way, somehow, I'm having it out.
Would you like to know their relationship to each other?
Tell me.
He
has to be important to some capacity, because why the fuck would you introduce this guy anyways? For a music box? Come on.
They're the partners who started Fazbear's Pizzeria.
What?
Yep.
That wasn't obvious to you while watching this? As soon as he showed up on screen and he's looking all scraggly, I was like, oh, he's been in on it since the beginning.
Yep.
Whoa. So wait. Oh my God. Now I have so many more questions. Okay. That's fine. Everything's fine. That's some bullshit.
Is it fine? Is it fine?
No.
Yeah, I would agree with you that it is absolutely absurd that we didn't get more Billy and Stu together. The Scream fan in me really walked into this optimistic that their energy combined would make this better than it was. But the other sad part I have is the fact that he felt like he was overacting for his moment. Our boy Skeet, he was just on a whole other level in this movie. And I'm not saying that he wasn't channeling a pain that felt real and relevant to the moment. It was very weird seeing him do it, and it felt a little bit above the moment.
He was giving too much.
Yeah, he really is tormented. So let's get more of him next time, because apparently we're fucking doomed to watch more of these movies.
Absolutely. I had a friend tell me, like, wait a minute, you're going to go see that movie in theaters? And I said, I'm going to do you one better. I'm watching it a day early. I sure am. And I guess if the opportunity arises, I'll be doing it again. But this time, and I might have said this in the first film review, right? But hold me accountable, folks. Before the next one comes out, I need to at least read something. I will not walk into that damn theater again and look like a fool, not understanding what the fuck's going on.
Okay, don't worry, I got you covered, because my crack team of investigators, meaning the children in my life, they're not children. One of them's an adult. The other two are teenagers. They provided me a link to a 1-hour video that is the complete lore and timeline of things for Five Nights at Freddy's. Unfortunately, I got this link 2 minutes before walking into the theater, so I could not partake immediately beforehand. But that's okay. That's okay. Because I do know enough to know that we have some shit ahead of us moving forward. And I do look forward, in a sense, to seeing what else they can put out. Now, not because I want to actually watch the movies, but because it was very cute when I got to the theater. They had the popcorn bucket in the cup. I bought prematurely. I might give it away. We'll see. I hate buying merch for a movie I end up not liking. But they did give away the full-size posters, so that was cool. And at this AMC, they were making the pizzas and putting it in Fazbear's Pizzeria boxes. How fucking cute is that?
That's adorable.
Yeah. Although one reason I'm not excited for an inevitable next movie is that there's actually a curse for me that Binks has helped me really understand. I am now sick. I am physically ill. And I was not physically ill before walking into that movie theater. But I was physically ill. And you can hear how sick I am in my voice. I was physically ill leaving. And when I rolled back the tapes, I was also physically ill the last time we reviewed Five Nights at Freddy's. So I feel like I might be hospitalized next time this shit comes around. I fucking hope not. But stay tuned, I guess.
Listen,
Yeah, fingers
I don't want
crossed.
to. I don't want to hear from any of you complaining if we don't end up doing a same day release for the third one, because it's tough out here for her. Okay, and we can't run this risk.
Look, this is like one of those franchises that is great to watch streaming. This is a bias of mine. I really don't enjoy being in movie theaters anymore. I love being at home. I love the comfort of it. I love the safety of it. It's the best. But if I'm going to go to a theater, you got to make it really worth it for me. In terms of a rewatch of this film, I don't know. In terms of continuing the franchise, sure. I'd prefer to do it the day it hits streaming. That would be more interesting to me. I think I would rather watch that video Chris talked about. Like, to me, a good Wikipedia article explaining the plot with a link to all the characters, like I can just dive down that. That would be great.
Well, I suppose we'll see what lies ahead for us. But for now, there you have it, folks. Five Nights at Freddy's 2, 2025. The newly released sequel has earned 2 hacks and 1 slash. Now, we've certainly had a robust discussion here, but the conversation about this movie and its nonsense doesn't end here by any means.
If you want to find out how you can go further than this episode, consider supporting the show by visiting patreon.com/hackerslash. This is where you can enjoy even more of the show, including bonus content with early access, extended episodes with our B-sides, movie nominations, and live shows.
We'll see you next time, folks, and remember, otters help each otter.